Welcome to the Joe Moglia Podcast, featuring Hall of Fame football coach and world-renowned business leader, Joe Moglia. Let's join the host of the Joe Moglia Podcast, Jamie King.
Coach, welcome back. And of course, so much has happened since we last talked. Military action, Operation Epic Fury. Your thoughts when you saw this go down in the action of the president?
Yeah, Jamie, I think this is an evil regime. This is a regime that has no problem eliminating their own people because their people choose to protest and disagree with them. It is clearly a dictatorship. They absolutely hate us and have forever. They have a religious ideology that believes that if you give up your life in order to take away an infidel's life, and they consider us the infidels, that you and your family are going to be rewarded by Allah in the afterlife. That's a pretty powerful motivation. Right. They have no problem saying publicly for decades and decades, death to Americans. Right. And if you have the best interests of our country at heart, you cannot sit around and philosophize on this. We cannot let this country have nuclear weapons. We can't let it happen. Now, we can negotiate, we can have diplomacy, we can do all these different things. But at the end of the day, we can't let it happen. And it's happening. It was happening. So I think Trump did the right thing by going in there and doing everything he can to eliminate this. The concern that I've got is that I recognize that we have differences politically in our country. And I've said this, and you have said this, that I'm disappointed that our Congress can't get together for the betterment of the country in terms of making decisions. Right. They spend all the time making sure that the other party is not going to get elected or reelected.
Right.
This is really one time when I believe we're doing the right thing for the right reasons. Not easy, difficult. War's always horrible, but now's not the right time to show the world that we're not united on this. So this is a time, I think, where both parties have to absolutely pull together and say, we, for the betterment of our nation's long-term national security, we can't allow them to have nuclear weapons. And this is where we're going to go about it. Now, we want this to come to an end as soon as possible, but I'd feel a lot better if we were more united on this. Having said that, I do believe we're doing the right thing.
Coach, I've always talked to you about our love of the servicemen and servicewomen who protect us and fight us and give us the freedoms to do the things like this that we love to do. My father earned the Silver Star for heroism and the Purple Heart, injured in war. My son was on the USS Lincoln. You have family with military ties. And when you look at what we've been through in our families and you look at our love for the servicemen and women that fight for us, when you look at that, Coach, and we've lost to date 6 members, sadly, in this Epic Fury battle that we're underway. And some people say it's going to go to a major war, and some people think it could go fast. Some other people think it'll be forever. Your thoughts on how we position ourselves early with the attack? Do you see this being a long-standing situation where it'll just keep going on, or do you think it will have a relatively quick end?
You know, I hope it doesn't go on and on and on. I can see our country becoming more divided on that. If we've accomplished what we wanted to accomplish, we've eliminated their Navy. You've already pointed out that we've gotten rid of the majority of their political leaders. I think if we had a good idea as to who the next leader is going to be, right, that would help us determine what we're going to do. If we really came to the table and had a diplomatic negotiation, I think all those things would help. We certainly don't want China and Russia to get involved. Right. I don't think they want to get involved either. But we certainly don't want that. Would only escalate things. So depending on who the next leader is, I would like to see them come to the table and we get this wrapped up. Having said that, you don't know what they're going to do. I mean, literally, you don't know. They may very well say, we're going to go down with the ship. We're going to go to the last person standing. I think ultimately, at the end of the day, is you want the Iranians that are not part of this group to be, have a democracy. So how are they going to set that up? That, I think, is a more difficult, complex question. That's going to take a long, long time. I don't know how we interact with that, and I don't know how we help that get done. I hope we figure something out there. But, I pray it's not going to go on for long, but we will see. We don't know the answer to that.
One question I have for you is, I remember my mom talking about their love as she was growing up for FDR and Harry Truman and the action they took and how the country was behind all of them because it was like oneness that we don't have today. As you look at through your history with your family and you look to today, and we know Trump's a polarizing figure, it almost scares me to say this, Coach, but it's almost like the hatred for him is almost more than the love of country and rooting for the country. And that's a sad state of affairs. I don't say it's that way totally, but in some factions, people are like rooting against this to happen or be successful. And it's our servicemen and women that have to come first. Don't you agree with that? And do you see the shift from when maybe you were coming up to now and the difference in terms of polarization of a political figure and the infighting versus the support of yesteryear?
I think as far as service people go, I mean, certainly we want to protect them, but it's war, and we're going to have casualties. That's the price of war.
Right.
I think we know that. We understand that. If you go back, I was part of the baby boomer generation, and my father and all my uncles served in World War II. Some of them served in other uncles served in Korea, and our country was pretty much united back then in terms of what we had going on. What started to change was Vietnam. When how long were we going to be there? What are we really trying to do?
Right.
And we had the protest on a lot of campuses, et cetera, et cetera. That's when we kind of pulled apart a little bit. But eventually, we pulled back together on that. And I think after 9/11, our country was as strong and as united as we've ever been for probably 2001, 2005. But over the last decade, 2015 on, that's a ballpark. It just feels our parties are moving in opposite directions. There are so many things that are kind of pretty good and make sense. There's no reason why the majority of Congress can't agree on. There are certain things in this particular case that's in our country's national best interest and our national security. This is not one of those things to fool around. This is where I don't want a president. This is where I want a commander-in-chief. Right. I don't want somebody to have to go check with a committee and see if do what you believe you got to do, because the safety of our country is at stake here. So I'm sad to see that politics are coming before the welfare of our country. In this particular case, in other cases, maybe it doesn't matter that much. In this particular case, it really, really matters. And I think we're wrong not to be supportive of the president, at least through these next couple of weeks.
A question I've never asked you: in all of your leadership as a highly successful head football coach, a highly successful business leader, respected around the world, did you at ever any point think of making the military a career? I can see you as a high-ranking official in the military, as a leader, somebody that would have attacked that with the same zest as you've attacked everything else.
Yes. When Vietnam was going on when I was in high school and college, and everybody around me was going to be drafted. And one way to postpone the draft was obviously go to college. It was a deferment. So I knew if I were going to be drafted, I knew I would serve, but I wanted to go in as an officer. So just like you have ROTC and NROTC, well, the Marines had PLC, Platoon Leader Corps, and I was prepared to join that organization my junior and senior year in college, and I would have come out a lieutenant in the Marines. I'm sure I would have gone to Vietnam. Now, if you recall, I got married and became a father when I was in school. So my deferment wasn't an academic deferment. It was a hardship deferment. I had a 3A deferment. And that really meant I even said, I'll serve. You want me to serve? Right. You got to protect got to take care of my daughter, my wife. So because I became a father as a teenager, I wound up not serving. Had that not happened, I'd like to think I probably would have been playing college ball someplace. I'd like to think that, but by the same token, that I would have gone into the service as a lieutenant in the Marines in Vietnam. Who knows what would have happened then? And by the way, I don't think I ever would have coached.
Wow. Isn't it? It's amazing to think of how things could have changed. And great to hear that. I do want to close this out with the United States military. I think they've done a phenomenal job. They've struck already 1,700 Iranian targets in 72 hours of the Epic Fury, of course, onslaught to start with. Your thoughts on the precision and the attack mode? You're a big game planner. So far, from your vantage point, not being a military leader, but being a coach and being a guy that puts together game plans, as you've seen this executed, what has been your take?
I don't know what the real inside scoop is on this. I know that we're talking about all the successes we've had, and it certainly seems that that's the case. But and again, my information could be wrong on this, but we have by far greater
Yeah.
technology than what they do, and we have far greater superior resources than what they do. But I was reading something the other day, and it could be wrong. Like they have $20,000 drones. Okay, we are taking the drones out with $4 million missiles. And in some cases, it takes more than one missile to knock out a drone. So if you got five missiles knocking out a drone, that's $20 million to knock off a $20,000 drone.
Right.
From a financial perspective, that can't go on and on and on for too long without that ultimately having an adverse effect. So if something like that would happen, then we start to deplete our resources there. And I know we're going to continue to build them, et cetera. Well, then what happens if we do have an issue with China? We do have an issue with Russia. So there is a point at which here, from an economic perspective, we've got to be maybe more thoughtful in terms of what's going on. So it seems we've done a good job. And I don't know what the real numbers are here, and I don't know what the real resources are. I know we got superior technology, superior resources to what they have. But if it takes us $4 million missiles to knock out a $20,000 drone, at some point that's going to come back and bite us in the ass.
It's the first time I've ever heard that analogy in terms of that.
And I don't know for sure, but I did read that the other day, and I had somebody verify it. That doesn't mean it's accurate,
Right.
but that is what I heard. And so I'd like to have a better understanding of that at some point. But right now is not the time to explain that to American people.
But at some point,
now, go get this done and wrap it up.
That would be a fascinating exercise to look at what it costs per missile versus drone, those type of things. That would really be fascinating from a financial perspective, and I never thought of it like that. But that's awesome, and I would love to learn more. We want to turn to the sports page, Coach, and we learned of the passing, 89 years of age, of legendary coach Lou Holtz from Notre Dame. You being a many times over Hall of Fame football coach yourself, your thoughts on Coach Holtz? Did you ever meet him, get to know him? Any thoughts on Lou Holtz?
It was 2017 when I was very, very much honored and humbled to receive the Lombardi Award. And that was on ESPN. It was on national television. Besides the Heisman Trophy, the next biggest award you give college athletes is the Lombardi Award. And what they gave me, they should call them different names. You got Lombardi trophies for the Super Bowl. Lombardi Award, what I received is partly because of my career in football, but also because of my career overall, not just football. But it was a tremendous honor. I was the one that actually announced and gave the award to, I think it was a defensive lineman from Alabama that won it. It was 2017. The keynote speaker that day was Lou Holtz. So Coach Holtz and I actually spent a lot of time together.
Wow.
And we developed the relationship, and we did spend time subsequent to that. So he and I probably had 4 or 5 dinners by ourselves. And oftentimes he'd given me advice. He appreciated the fact that what I did and had gone back to football. He thought that was pretty cool. He felt at the time, even though he was older, he thought that his wisdom was as good as it's ever been. And while he wasn't as mobile as what he used to be, that he could, he thought he was as sharp as he ever would have been if he had an opportunity to go back to football. I think it was a piece of him. I think he had to be 80 then, but I think there was a piece of him that said, if somebody offered him an opportunity to do that, I think he would have done it. And he didn't need to go to Notre Dame again. I mean, I think if I said to him, "You want to come to Coast Carolina, be the offensive coordinator," I think he might have wanted saying yes to something like that. So, so he was very, very helpful with his thoughts and his advice. He does have a great sense of humor. He dealt one story after another. One hardship that he was going through that people might be aware of because it's part of his history, but it wasn't very public. His wife was very, very sick for a long time. Okay. And Lou was the one really taking care of her. Wow. So if he had the opportunity to go back to coaching, he probably wouldn't have been able to do it because he needed to take care of his wife. He was also a very, very devout guy. And, he was very, very devout, very, very religious. I think in his will, I think he was planning that when he did pass, he was going to be buried in Notre Dame. But he was a very interesting guy, and I had a tremendous amount of respect for him. And it was probably 3-4 years ago when we had dinner, at his club in Orlando.
Is there one lasting memory or impact that he had
I
on
think,
you?
it's everything I simply shared. He felt he was as sharp as he ever was, even though
Right.
his body was breaking down. He had to devote a lot of his energy to take care of his wife. Very, very, very devout person. And with me, I think he respected, what my background was, and
Right.
he appreciated the fact that I went back to coaching, and he was more than happy to go out of his way to help.
There were two stories about him that I loved as a coach. One was he told his team before a big game, look, there's 70,000 people who are going to go out and be the enemy out here as far as we're playing on their territory. But of the 70,000 people, they're unarmed. So don't worry about it. We've got this. And then the other was the story about people with troubles. He said, listen, 80% of the people that you talk to and tell them you have troubles don't care. And the other 20% are glad you have them. So, I mean, he just unbelievable, man.
I didn't hear the first one, and I'm probably never going to use that one. But I like the second one.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
like the second one. I did hear the second one, and that'd be something that I should use the second one.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the next topic was the Olympics. Coach, just an amazing Olympics in Milan and, of course, Cortina. U.S. men's and women's hockey teams won gold. Your thoughts on that spectacular game with the men and women, and your takeaway there? 46 years since the miracle happened.
To the day.
Absolutely. Your thoughts on the Olympics and the big win?
Well, first, it was great. Think back to 46 years ago. Remember, we didn't allow pros.
Right.
Only amateurs could play.
Right.
So we really only had college players. Every player on the U.S. and the American team were NHL stars, every one of them. There was no college players on the team. And back then, the number one power in the world by far in hockey was the men's Russian team. And they were odds-on favorite to win the gold that year. And most of the time. But they were all professionals, and they were playing against 20, 21, 22-year-old kids. And so that's where the miracle turned out to be the case. It was like college all-stars,
Yep.
the NHL all-stars.
Right.
That's what happened that day.
Right.
Think about the chances of that even happening again if they would play five
Right.
more times. I think I've shared this with you and our audience before. Mark Ciardi, it was the guy that produced that Miracle
Right.
on Ice, and he's also the guy that did the recent documentary on the miracle, where he went back and talked.
Right.
Which is great. If you haven't seen that, it's an hour and 40 minutes. People, you ought to take a look at it.
Okay.
Mark's the same guy that's actually doing my movie.
Right.
Or what's ever going to happen with my stuff. So I felt, number one, great and proud of our country, but very, very real to me because of my relationship with Mark to kind of look at the comparison.
Right.
46 years ago, the movie, the event, the documentary on that, and then what happened today.
Right.
Different circumstances, but it was great. It was great to see us win that.
I've got a couple topics I want to get in before we go. One is in the BAM philosophy aspects and accountability. Could you please, you had a great article in Forbes magazine about the Olympic curling, and it was entitled The Spirit of Curling. Could you go into that quickly and let the folks know about that and what was your thoughts behind that article?
Well, I can't. And BAM, you take responsibility for yourself. You take the respect. There are consequences to actions. So in curling, I don't know exactly what the rules are, but curling comes up enough because it's on almost every night as far as so you kind of watch some of it all the time. And but the one competitor wasn't allowed. I don't remember exactly what happened, but he wasn't allowed to touch.
Right.
The
stone.
rock,
Yeah.
stone.
Yeah.
And he did. And he's supposed to call, like in golf, you're supposed to call yourself out on it. He didn't. So the opponent called him out on it. Then he got mad at the opponent, and that's not supposed to happen. Then the officials started getting involved with it, and the guy's telling everybody to kind of drop dead. And the reality is, the officials say, okay, if this happens again, this is what we're going to handle. I don't like the way the officials handle it. I don't like the way anybody handle this.
Right.
So the guy was wrong. He did something that was wrong. His opponent should have called him out, and the officials should have done something right then and there, not wait till later on. So the officials did not do their job. And this guy acted like a prima donna and acted like, that he was untouchable. He should have been thrown out, and the officials should have been severely reprimanded, even fined, for not doing their job when this obviously came up.
Well, you caught that one, and folks, you got to catch Joe's articles in Forbes. They are fantastic, all kinds of topics, and something you need to read, and it is absolutely phenomenal. This one really caught my eye. It was on curling and the Olympics. Coach, before we let you go, of course, we talk about advice you have for us, family-related, football-related, finance-related. We've had so much going on in the last few weeks, and, of course, last week with the Epic Fury start there. What do you have for us this week in terms of advice for the week ahead?
Yeah, I think it's the way we began our show today, Jamie. It's we are literally in a war with a country that hates us, and those putting together nuclear arms. And I think the only purpose they would use those for is to kind of bring death to America.
Yes.
So I think certainly, there were also innocent Iranians who's given up their lives.
Yes.
Now, we've had 6 service people so far. There's probably going to be more than that, but that's the cost of war. And I think what we want to do is we want to do everything we can to pray or hope that they pick the right leader in Iran, somebody that got enough common sense to recognize, maybe it makes sense for us to be able to start all over and be as devout, as religious as you want to be. But, we're not. Meaning the Iranians, they're not supposed to take on the rest of the world. There's no reason why they can't develop their own democratic system, et cetera. And I think we've got to do everything we can to pray and use all of our positive energy to kind of bring this to a diplomatic end as soon as possible. The longer it drags on, the more divisive our country is going to become, and the more it's going to upset people like China and the Russians, which we don't need more aggravation with. So recognize what's going on in the world, how critical it is, and kind of do everything we can to pray and hope, and if we can't do anything about it, to bring it to an end.
And I think to bring this to a little bit more clarity, it wasn't but a few weeks ago when they killed 30,000 plus of their own people.
Yeah,
so you can say all you want, but if you put yourself in that position and say 30,000, a stadium full of people are dead because they protested against a country, somebody took action. Now, whether you like the people taking action, that's up to you. But the fact that they're trying to get a new regime and give these people an opportunity to live a certain way, I think that's important.
It's a bad regime. It's a bad regime. That's the reason why I think what we did was the right thing. Not because they were doing that, but that's another reason. But they were putting together nuclear weapons for one express purpose: death to America.
Absolutely.
And we can't let that happen.
We want to thank you all for watching and listening to the Joe Moglia Podcast. You can catch Joe on his frequent appearances on CNBC, and don't miss any of his famous, of course, fabulous Forbes articles. We just talked about one there. There can't miss. To learn more about Joe, head on over to Moglia.com. That's Moglia.com. You'll see photos, interviews, and catch all the things Joe Moglia and find out what he's up to. And, of course, a movie and book on the way. We will be here when that breaks, and we'll let you know right here on the Joe Moglia Podcast. Coach, thanks for all you do. Have a great week ahead. And once again, thanks for bringing all this info to us. You gave us all a lot to think about.
All the best, Jamie. All the best, everybody. Take care, folks.
Thank you for joining us for another edition of the Joe Moglia Podcast. Reminding you to learn more about Joe by going to the sensational Joe Moglia website at Moglia.com. That's Moglia.com. That's Moglia.com. When you visit the website, you'll be able to learn more about Joe's schedule of appearances on CNBC as well as other speaking and television appearances. You can also read all of Joe's incredible articles featured in Forbes magazine. For Hall of Fame coach Joe Moglia, producer-director Rob Matea, and Joe Moglia podcast host Jamie King,